Howdy. Howdy! That's much better. Well, I'm going to tell you a story. Some of you folks probably heard about Einstein's theory of relativity. This ain't it. Back in Arkansas, where I come from, we have a theory of relatives. That is, everyone's a relative to everybody else. And then I came out here and I found that the same thing exists down there in Oroville. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Okay, here goes. Listen carefully and take notes. Now, many years ago, when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as can be. The widow had a grown-up daughter who had yellow bread. My father fell in love with her, and soon they two were wed. My dad became my son-in-law and changed my very life. My daughter was my mother, for she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to Dad, who then became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he was my uncle, then that also made him brother to the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. It gets worse from here. My father's wife then had a child who kept him on the run, and he became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife became my mother's mother, and that made me blue, because although she was my wife, she's my grandmother too. Now if my wife is my grandmother, then I'm her grandchild. You catching it all? And every time I think of it, it nearly drives me wild, for now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It's the funny I know. There it goes. I'm my own grandpa. Everybody, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It's the funny I know. There it goes. I'm my own grandpa. Anyway, a few years ago, I had the pleasure of spending a little time in Tennessee. And I met an old backhills codger. Kind of a poor old soul. Didn't know a whole lot of English. Had trouble with English, in fact. Dressed kind of like this. And maybe except for the pink shirt. Other than that, he dressed kind of like this. And he loved to tell stories, but he always mixed up the words. Well, his favorite story was Cinderella. And he told me Cinderella, and I loved it so much that I'd like to share with you. He told it to me, and it goes something like this. No, it actually goes exactly like this. Once upon a time, there was a little girl by the name of Cinderella. And she lived in a big heart house with her mean old stepmother and her two sissy uncles. She did all the wordy dirt while they sat around all day cheating operates and magging magazines. Well, one day Cinderella was out in the kitchen just getting ready to flop the board when a messenger came from the castle with a letter for the two sissy uncles. Indeed. Well, the two sissy uncles just ran into the kitchen and said, Cinderella, Cinderella, guess what? The Prancing Hench is going to throw a Brancy Press ball, and we've been invited, and I'll bet you wish you could go. Well, Cinderella was sad and just turned her head with ears in her ties. But on the day of the ball, Cinderella was out in the kitchen just getting ready to chickasee a frickin'. She was, when all of a sudden there was this lightning flash of flight, and before her was this beautiful fairy. And Cinderella said to the fairy, who are you and what do you want? Well, the fairy said, I am your Gary Modfather, and I've come to give you any wish you want. And Cinderella said, oh, how I wish I could go to the ball. And with that, the Gary Modfather just waved her wand and instantly transformed Cinderella into a Babishing Rudy. She had on a white Gatton sound, and she had a necklace of boobies and pearls. And on her feet were two tiny slat slippers. And the Gary Modfather said, now remember, Cinderella, you may go to the ball, but you must be home by midnight. And Cinderella said, oh boy, and off she ran. Well, soon she came to the camel. Now, she came to the castle. And the first two people she saw were the two sissy uncles. But she was so beautiful that they didn't even see her eyes recognize. Well, the Prancing Hench came over and said to Cinderella, may I dab his hands? And they danced all around the raw boom. Well, they were having such a good time that before they knew it, the clock began to strike midnight and Cinderella vanished from the wall. But as she did, one of the tiny slat slippers flipped from her sock. Well, the Prancing Hench ran over and picked up the tiny slat slippers and said, I am going to find the woman whose flipper this should hit. Whose foot this flipper sits? That's it. And then I'll know with whom I am fallen in love. So the next day, the Prancing Hench went all around the kingdom and went from house to house. And there's nothing I can do with those two words. Soon, he came to the city where House Gorilla lived. And he knocked on the door. Well, when the door opened, he said, I'm looking for the woman who should this flipper says. Well, the two sissy uncles tried them on, but their feet were too fit. Then Cinderella tried it on, and guess what? The flipper pitted surfer.